Thanks, Doreen. First of all, I want to say, I love Willits, and I love Mendocino County. This is my home. This is where I chose to raise my 2 children. It's my community. And like all communities, our community has some challenges. And we're going to talk about those tonight. It's time. We have suffered some tremendous loss in our community lately around drugs and alcohol. And maybe it just hits home a little more and seems like it's more than usual to me because it's been people that I care about and that I know. But it just seems like it's just getting bigger. And it's time for us to talk about it. And that's what we're going to do here tonight. I have the privilege and honor to work with these young people up here. Some of the things they tell me scares me. But when I look around in this room, I see a group of people that are here, and for whatever your reason is, you're here. And we're going to talk about these things as a community and hopefully make some plans to support these young people. How about we start over on the end with Jessie?
Hi, my name is Jessie. I'm a senior at Laytonville High School. A while ago I read a statistic that Mendocino County has one of the highest substance abuse rates, which is kind of believable since it's pretty easy to get access to some things if you want it. So, just thought I'd share that.
My name is Carlos Diaz.
My name is Roxanne Johnson. I am a sophomore at Laytonville High, and I participate in mock trial and Healthy Start.
I'm Kyrie Golden, and I'm a freshman at Laytonville High.
I'm Cole Purdy, and I'm a 6th grader at the Grove Middle School. I'm Hannah Rachel. I'm a 6th grader at the Grove Middle School. I'm Nancy Davis. I'm a sophomore at the high school, and I'm Layton Catholic.
My name is Zoe Martinez, and I'm a junior at Willits.
Hey, what a great group of kids. It is really, like I said, it's just a pleasure. I am one of the unit supervisors in prevention, but I am fortunate to still get to do some direct work. And so my Tuesdays I spend with these guys, and it really is the highlight of my week. I want to take a few minutes to explain what prevention is. It's kind of an interesting concept to explain how you go about preventing something from happening. I get that ever so important question in social settings all the time. So what do you do? And I often ask, well, how much time do you have? But since I have your attention here, I'm going to take that opportunity and just do a little brief 101 of what prevention is. Young people know a lot more than we think they know about drugs and alcohol. And the traditional approach of intervention and focusing on the individual behavior, that is more of an intervention and not really prevention. So counseling and education are important, they're critical, but addressing systems and policy changes impact the greater population and makes lasting change. Environmental prevention is a way to address the root causes to impact the greater community and looking at the context of alcohol and drug-related community problems. So the context means the places, settings, and occasions and circumstances that these behaviors occur in, whether that's use or sales. So I'll tell a little story about environmental prevention that often helps with that concept. So a man and a woman are fishing next to a river. Suddenly a person comes floating down the river, struggling for life. The man and the woman pull her out of the river and save her. Then another comes, and another, and they're pulling people from the water all day long. Suddenly the woman runs upstream, and the man yells to her, "What are you doing? People need help right now." And she says, "We've got to see why they keep falling in the first place, to stop it from happening." And that's environmental change, addressing the conditions that encourage or discourage healthy communities. So environmental prevention acknowledges that personal choice is only one aspect of why people do what they do. Our decisions are influenced by a complex set of factors beyond our choices. These are what is considered acceptable in families and communities, TV, billboards, internet, big laws, rules, and policies that are set by cities, schools, businesses, and then how easy is it to get drugs and alcohol? What healthy opportunities are available? We'll be looking at the 4 Ps of environmental prevention with these youth today in our breakout groups. Product, promotion, place, and price. So product, of course, refers to the product, how it is viewed and consumed. Can you tell which ones of these are alcoholic and not alcoholic?
Yeah.
Which one?
Mike's Hard Lemonade, Rick's Spike Mandarin Lime, probably Lizard Lightning right there, maybe Doc. Don't know about Mystic.
Told you they know a lot more than most of us. Promotion refers to the manner and the extent that it's promoted. And we see a lot of ads in the world. And the price. Sometimes you can get malt liquor for cheaper than water or juice or milk in a store. That's pretty common. And then the place. And this can be in social settings like parties or in stores and in the greater community like community events. Got places that sell alcohol and people are drinking it. I'll be done in just a second and we'll hear from the kids. But the 4 Ps, in addition to the media messages and the culture of acceptance, really have a powerful influence on our young people and on people in general. And you don't have to just take my word for it. We're going to hear from the kids right now.
I am a youth advocate because I want to make a change in the community, and I believe that the way to start the change is by educating the younger kids about the negative effects of drugs and alcohol. The reason why I picked this topic is because I want kids to know what they will be getting themselves into if they ever chose to do drugs or drink alcohol. I want them to have a future in life. I want them to make the right choice. Even if they do end up choosing to drink and do drugs, I want them to be safe and know that there is a probability of their life being changed. There have been times when my friends have told me that they go to parties where parents are serving alcohol and giving out drugs and even joining in with the kids.
As you already know, I'm Kyrie, and having lived previously in an urban area of low income, I've seen people go through addiction to pretty much every drug from cigarettes to heroin, and the end result is pretty much always the same. They end up dead or ruined. So if you ask me right now what my optimal policy on any drugs or alcohol would just be total, just no. I don't really know any other way to put it, just no drugs or alcohol, honestly, not even for full-grown adults. It's just death, is all it really is. And, God, I had something really smart to say once I got up here.
I hate it when that happens. That's why I do this.
Oh yeah, but also, with my experiences being around addicts, what I've noticed that has worked and isn't quite as extreme as what I just noticed, what has worked for others and has worked for me, I have a compulsory addiction to gaming, is one-on-one counseling. Tends to work very well. The environmental prevention that this woman does is also very effective, and honestly, I would like to see more funding and more support towards programs like that.
The reason I joined Youth Advocates was to see there's a lot of drugs and alcohol usage being used commonly in the community, which also leads to middle school. I've also noticed, because around middle school was a time that my uncle started drinking, and at age 42 he was shot. After going through alcohol and all that, he was killed, shot practically, and ruined his life, and then he died about 51. from alcohol poisoning, from alcohol damage to his liver, and being quadriplegic. And then after that, I realized, well, I've known about it, but alcohol is just something that shouldn't be used, or drugs, especially at such a young age, because they start at such a young age and they became addicted quite so easily. And people nowadays, they're like, yeah, I'll smoke a cigarette and it's not addicting, I won't get addicted, and then they wind up getting addicted. So it's just best to stop the source before it even becomes a thing.
I think that for prevention, something that should be really emphasized more in school systems, emphasized as much as something like English or math class, I think that health should be emphasized because, you know, we're educated and we're given all these pamphlets of these things that are drugs and what they do to you, and alcohol and how they're bad for you and how they negatively affect your life, but I don't feel like the emphasis is being put on health itself and how important it is, and ultimately how it affects your entire life, you know? So I think that health should be should be emphasized in schools to help prevent alcohol and substance abuse.
I'm part of Youth Advocates to make a change in this community, and I'm going to talk about advertising. I've seen commercials about how smoking and drugs are really not good for you and how they advertise for that, which is a good thing. But there are commercials that are talking about how drugs and alcohol are really good for you, but they're not. And I've seen commercials about that are sports or other commercials, and then it turns into advertising for alcohol. And as a 6th grader in middle school, I've been invited to 3 parties, and there's going to be alcohol when the parents are providing.
My name's Jessie. I think the use of drugs and the effect it has on your life ultimately, and how it can affect the people you love and everybody around you, definitely needs to be emphasized, because I've had an immediate family member pass away from ODing before, and it's really hard to see someone go from that stage to an addict and just ruining their lives. And so I think that really needs to be emphasized in the community.
If someone at home is drunk, yelling, or even just drinking but not drunk, it affects the family at home. Even the people that aren't present but they know it's happening. It worries the family and friends that weren't involved in the drinking. We're all worried. That's what we're here for, to try and stop people from drinking, making less family or friends being worried about the people getting hurt or dying.
The reason I joined this program was because as a high school student, I see a lot of people come into our classrooms and talk to us about drugs and alcohol, and a lot of it is purely just telling us what to do and telling us how to live our lives. And a lot of the time, kids our age, they see it more as a challenge. Like, you say that I can't survive like this, just watch me do this. And I think it's a lot less effective than telling us exactly how it affects your body positively and negatively. So you know both sides of the story, so you can really choose, is it worth it? Like, is this, in your opinion, like, it really comes down to you. And I believe that it should be an individual choice. And the effects, if they end up on another person, then it clearly like turns into a problem. But if it's strictly you, I think it should all come down to you having to decide whether it's worth it or not.
Sorry, I don't want to give you this opportunity. I like the point that you made. As a council member, I get to participate in passing laws and telling you what you need to do, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And I never liked that personally, because like you said, But I'm kind of impressed with every one of you, and I have to ask a question of each one of you. Why are you here? Why are you who you are and not the person you're trying not to be? In other words, I get that, kids your age are exposed to, all the temptations and all, just like we all were when we were growing up. I have 3 kids who are old enough to be your parents right now. And when they graduate from high school, I thank God that they made it through straight, because you never know. So my question is, how do you get to be who you are and not fall into that pit like all of your friends are? When you see, you've all grown up in the same environment, I assume. Why are you here the way you are and not, some lost soul? What is it about it?
Well, I don't think, to your question, I don't think that falling in the pit or not falling in the pit comes down to whether you drink alcohol or whether you smoke marijuana or whether you do either one of those. It comes down to how you handle it, how you are, what kind of person you are in the end.
I would like to say something on that. I think that it comes from respect and how much respect you are taught at a young age or throughout your life, because if you respect yourself or you respect your family members, you respect the people around you, and if they don't want you doing drugs or they don't want you using alcohol, and you kind of stick to that out of respect. And even if you don't have older people in your life that are, staying on you about being healthy and making good life choices or whatever, if you respect yourself and you want good things for yourself, you're not going to end up in that pit. The respect for yourself, the respect for your family, from your family, also respect from adults to us, that just teaches us respect, which is what I think keeps you in or out of the pit.
First of all, I want to say that each of the speakers really touched me in a different way, and I'm really proud of all of you for being able to get up and say what you said. Kyrie, is that correct? You mentioned that you believed more funding should be allocated to programs like this. And, as the Director of Health and Human Services, I'd be interested in hearing what you thought that would look like. In other words, if you had some access to some funding, how would you use it to make a big difference? Would you replicate what's here? Again, more of that, or how would that look? And to not put you on the spot, I'd like maybe you to work with Tina on what your thoughts are about that and have her get that to me.
I would have to think about that.
I bet you would. So that's why I'm giving you an out. But
It's not a decision, but I would love to put some thought on that.
it's important for us to make an investment of our dollars wisely in programs that work and that are effective. And what I'm hearing is this is an effective program. And, so how can we get some more success? And do you replicate the same program? So put some thought to that and work with Tina. I'd be interested. And I don't have $1 billion. I'm not saying that, but I would be interested to hear your thoughts, and let's see what we can do.
My life is it's a good life and everything, but when I would go to my aunt's house, certain aunts, my uncle would come home drunk when he should have come home with food for his kids. And at that time, they only had a little girl, and I was about 5 years old and she was 3, and he would come home and start hitting my aunt and everything. And I was young, so I didn't really understand it, but I understand it was dangerous, so I would go hide with my little cousin, tell her it's all right when she's crying. Then my uncle would come and be like, oh, nothing happened, get out of here. And we're just like, no. I would say no, and I was a young girl. He would leave, I would go to my aunt, she'd be crying. I'd play the doctor saying, you just need to take orange juice and all this and be happy and all. But I kind of was exposed to all the drugs and kind of alcohol. And also, I had an uncle who I actually never met, and he passed away because he was driving while drunk. And my dad has to pass by the place where he passed away every day when we go to Ukiah. And that kind of upsets me, even though he doesn't show it, I know it hurts him. So I don't want to become a person who hurts my children or any of my parents or anyone, because if I end up dying because of an accident or something that I did because I decided to drink and drive, I don't want to hurt my parents, and I want to be a good person and not make them suffer that way. That's my option. So,
See, before we started this panel discussion, you had mentioned something about responsibility and the role that responsibility plays in making these types of decisions as a young person, and what ultimately the outcome will be if you have a real good sense of responsibility about your life. Do you feel that programs like life skills touch on that enough? Do you ever remember doing life skills in any of your classes?
Yeah.
Did they ever talk about responsibility?
Yeah,
And maybe you could elaborate more on what you were telling us about responsibility.
Okay, yeah. Well, every other week maybe they'd give us these little booklets about drugs and how you're not supposed to do them and peer pressure and all that. But I think that maybe categorizing drugs and alcohol use or substance use at all as something more as a responsibility. It's like anything, it's not something that you get older and you get to do drugs now and you experiment in that. It's a responsibility if you're going to take on something like that in your life. It's like anything. It's like getting a pet. It's like having sex. It's a responsibility, and it needs to be treated as a responsibility. And if you are going to do drugs and alcohol, it's a personal thing, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's always going to be people that are not with the law, but it's a responsibility. It's not just a new thing that you get to do and you get to dabble in and have fun. Like, it can really affect your life. And if you're responsible about it and you're responsible about how you use substances, I think that maybe decisions will be better made. And it's just a different way of looking at it. It's a different way to present it to kids instead of just such a negative thing. Like, look, it's really just a responsibility. It's really something new that you might take on. So just a different way of thinking about prevention.
So you're saying that maybe more education about what the drug, what are the real effects of these substances on like the developing teenage brain, and instead of like, no, don't do this, this is bad. You're saying that if people were just more real about it with you and talk about how it's a privilege and it needs to be handled responsibly.
Right. Well, we know when you're just really trying to scare us out of what you don't want us to get into, because it is scary, and lots of people lose people to that kind of thing. It's such a scary, scary thing. It's a new responsibility, it's something bad can happen to you, like you can get pregnant, like your dog can get ran over and die because you weren't watching it, you know what I mean? Like, so we can tell when you're kind of just trying to scare us out of we can tell when you're trying to scare us. And when we're offered facts that are totally real, the good and the bad, what chemically, break it down, and that's something that we have a speaker at our school, Ralph Cantor, I don't know if you guys know about him, but he's really good at that. He's really good at connecting with us, and it's a respect thing. I mean, like, if you guys are willing to give us that knowledge, respect us enough to educate us with the true facts and what's really going on, we feel that respect, we want to give that respect back, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to accept the information more willingly, I think.
I like where this is going, and I'd like permission to throw my agenda out the door and keep going with this. Is everybody okay with that? I like where this is going a lot. I would say too that you have people in your community that provide opportunities for you to learn about things and to learn how to be powerful with your voice and how to use it and how to change the world. And I think that makes a big difference too.
I think
And
that, yeah.
your people out there that brought you here today worked really hard and they care, and you know that.
Right.
And that's why you hang out with them.
While we're on the theme of the whole life skills thing, one way that particular, the life skills, I don't know if you would call it a curriculum, sort of a curriculum would be made more effective is when I took it, the last time we did life skills for my class was in 8th grade, and we took it, there was a lot of emphasis on read the packet, answer the questions, read the packet, answer the questions, etc., which to me doesn't seem like a very good way to actually teach this sort of values we want to instill. I think that they should be reworked to involve more classroom discussions because, it's like they said, it's not just some adult talking down to you, don't do heroin, it's an actual discussion you're having with your classmates. Yeah, sure, maybe there's a little pamphlet you filled out at the beginning, but the majority of it should be discussing with classmates, because then you hear so many things. You hear the things that you just heard. You hear people's personal experience. Like, I personally think that a lot more could be learned from my experience as the son of an alcoholic than from any of those life skill packets you can throw out there.
I have a question. So, as somebody who works in, government and policy and all that kind of stuff, one of the problems that we come across over and over again is, how do we deal with your parents? Okay?
Also, you mean like cultural?
Well, it could be cultural, it could be the fact that your parents may not want us to talk about drugs and alcohol in that way. They may not want us to have that discussion, or may not want us to talk about sex in that way. You know what I mean? And I would support that discussion 100%. I think that I totally agree with you that those discussions are the things that make a difference. I totally hear you, okay? So you're in your household. I don't know if your household is different from the household I grew up in, but I didn't talk to my parents about that kind of stuff. Is there a way, do you know, how can we work with in the community? Is there something that we can say? I mean, this may be totally out there, but I just thought I'd ask you if you knew the answer. How do we, as people who are working with policy and government and, how do we work with your parents to get them to sign, we have to get them to sign something that says you can go to that class?
There's really no easy answer to that. The only way you can really fix that is with responsible parents, and there's really no easy fix if parents don't care or don't want their children to have this kind of education. Sadly enough, it's really a hit or miss thing. It depends on their personal philosophy and ultimately their involvement with the child, because if a parent already doesn't care about their child, they're going to be kind of resistant to any efforts you have to make them care about the child. You could throw all the parenting seminars you want in the world, a majority of the bad parents are never going to come because they don't care in the first place. So yeah, there is no easy answer. The only thing I can suggest is effort.
For the parents that don't care, I don't think it's really going to be they're going to be like, oh, no, I don't want you to learn about that. But for the parents that do care and are just really anal about it,
Or afraid?
yeah, afraid. They're really, strict with what their kids know, and they don't want them to get into anything bad. But the thing is, if you live in a community where it is a problem, and it is a problem, you have support for that, you don't want your kids to learn about drugs or from their peers, because you don't want them to learn from a different place that maybe isn't such a reliable source, or isn't, could steer them in a worse direction. Like, instead of being instead of being, they're not going to be totally, they're not going to never, you can't hide them from the bad stuff that goes on. Do you get what I'm saying? Like just emphasizing that if you don't learn it from here, they're gonna learn it from somewhere else, and that source is probably gonna be a lot more, that's gonna result in a lot more bad stuff.
I have a question, but I kind of want to, before I forget the thought about when you said, how do we approach them? And in them, it already kind of is a concept of them and us. And it's really, how do we as a community, a diverse community of very different people, cultures, how do we come together in a forum just like this, come together with ideas on how to approach our community and educate them with really important information that could possibly help save their children's lives or their neighbors' children's lives. So, so that's a start, and really tapping into, prior to this, I was at the tribal office early. That's where I just came from. And I was like, did you know about this thing going on? Did anybody fax you? They're like, no, we didn't even know about it. I'm like, okay. Well, you know about it now. I actually contacted them Thursday when I found out. I'm like, but we're going to fix this. I'm a Mendocino County person. Now, I don't care if you're from Willits or from wherever. I work with kids from all over Mendocino County. So it doesn't matter if you're from Laytonville, Willits, or Ukiah. Our kids are our kids. Because when we lose one of our kids, it impacts everybody here, And so I just really hope that what this is pretty cool, and that we could really have some dialogue on how we can gain strength and really present the information to where it is approachable to people that are like, oh no, I don't want to do that, or it's not your job to teach my child, because I get it. I mean, I'm a treatment provider, I totally get it. But it's really making it to where it's palatable for people without making them feel like they're doing something wrong or their kids are doing something wrong. You know what I mean? So that being said, this is like a burning question in the field. And I really, while I have you guys here, I really want to ask it. Because some of us older folks, and maybe some of you old, maybe seniors, remember DARE. The DARE program, Just Say No. Okay, so we all know why the DARE program didn't work, because you just can't say no and then not give somebody some information, right? Right. So and there's millions and millions of dollars poured into the DARE program. And so there's a reason why they didn't work. My question is really to everybody, but the younger ones, because here's the debate amongst the clinical people, okay? How young is too young to start providing you guys with the information that you need to start making informed decisions? Like you said, it's a responsibility. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. We're not going to talk to third graders and say, oh, this is what heroin addicts do. You know what I'm saying? I get that. But what do you think? Do you think we have some, 5th, 6th graders over here? What do you guys think? I'm just curious.
That learning about it's a good place to start as being the age that we are, and knowing what we know at our age. Like, I'm 12 and I don't know. But I think that around when you get into middle school, it's good.
So do you think at your age it's more helpful to learn about the positives and negatives about drugs and alcohol, as the older kids said, or do you think it's more important to learn about how to have the courage and the strength to be responsible for yourself and have that self-esteem that's required to be responsible? What do you think is a more important skill for your age to learn? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, well, they're both really good things to know. I think that the positive and the negatives about drugs and alcohol.
As parents and as adults, sometimes we don't want to hear, we don't want to believe that a 12-year-old boy has been invited to parties that alcohol is served. That I mean, I didn't want to hear that. And you know, it's tough being a kid these days. You know, it was tough when we were kids. It's really tough for you guys. So, you know, I really admire the strength that you children have.
And I wanted to say something too, going back to the parents don't care thing. I think most parents do care, but not everybody has the skills to be the best that they can be. I think that the majority wants to be good parents and that they do care, but that not everybody has the skills to be able to do it, and not everybody has the respect for themselves to be able to give that to someone else. We don't get a license when we have, you know, to have a child. We just kind of have to figure it out. And as far as, you know, getting parents involved in what we're doing, sometimes that's really scary because, you know, there will be things that are discussed that don't belong outside of the family, and that's going to happen, and that's scary because we have this, you know, we have this little front that we put on, like, I'm fine, how are you? And, you know, we're not always fine. And for that to be exposed, especially, just for that to be exposed is a scary thing. So just knowing that the people who are with your children really care about them and care about your family, and that we're not judging you, and that we're not in a place to judge ourselves, that is really important. And I think most parents care.
I wanted to ask, when Ralph Cantor speaks up at Laytonville High School, does anybody have to get a permission slip?
So it's part of the health fair, and for ed code you have to provide a certain day's notice. But if you're of a certain age, it requires a permission slip that says my child does not have to participate. Whereas in elementary school, you have to have a positive permission. You have to have a parent saying, yes, they can sit in this class and get this information.
So were there many students who didn't need a Ralph Cantor?
No.
There weren't a lot of parents who said, no, I don't want my child to do it, but there were a lot of kids who don't come to school that day, who just skip, or parents allow them to skip because they don't think that they need to sit through the health fair. The kid says, oh, I've already done that, I don't want to do that, or we have a low attendance rate on those days.
Getting back to the whole issue of what age to start educating kids about drugs. When I was in 3rd and 4th grade, one of the things that irked me was I was a lot more smarter than most people thought I was, and I was a lot more prepared for the world. And I think that, honestly, if we're getting to the point where 6th graders are being put into positions where they have actual liable access to drugs and alcohol, then yeah, maybe we do need to think about incorporating drug education as early as 4th to 2nd grade, just to throw that out there. I think as the times change to where, you know, the standards get lower. 10 years ago, it was mostly freshmen being invited for the first time. 10 years later, we have 6th graders. So honestly, I think we need to take a bit more of an offensive stance and adapt to that as times change.
Let me just speak on that real quick. I think that we really start, it's in our face a lot, and like it starts becoming more of a real thing when we start going to school with the older kids. You know, in middle school, it pretty much is when you're exposed to a little bit of the teenagerness of the 8th graders, you know, and they're doing stuff, they're partying, and you see it, and it's real, you know what I mean? It's not just a movie scene, it's not just your parents, it's real, you know, there's kids that are within your general age group that are actually doing that kind of stuff. So I think the most important age is probably 6th grade or 5th grade, or whenever you're about to for the majority of people, I don't know, young people also have older siblings or maybe parents that are really into that, but for the general public or your general community, whatever age they start really interacting with some kids that are a little bit older than they are, is what I think.
I agree with Kyrie on his point because when I was in 5th grade, I was offered substances by people below me in grade and higher. And like I was smart enough to deny it because I didn't feel like I needed that and it just wasn't part of my life. But I feel like a lot of people aren't responsible enough to make that decision at that time. So it definitely does need to be educated then.
I just wanted to add that, I'm aware that some years ago, first grader in Mendocino County actually brought a pipe with marijuana to school, and it had come from the parents' house. So I don't know the details of it, but whether it was just that it was lying around at home and the kid brought it, or he was actually planning to use it, I don't know. But I think that, because there are so many parents in Mendocino County that smoke weed, I think that the kids are exposed to a very young age, from birth really, and they've been inhaling it since birth. And the parents have been growing it since birth. Yeah. Yeah, so there's, in a lot of those cases, they're exposed, and those kids may not actually be coming to school because some of them are being homeschooled because they don't want the kids to come to school and talk about it. So I think there's a whole hidden community out there that we don't always see, and it's interesting. It's great to hear, the different ages that things have affected you guys and when you become aware.
I also agree because lots of kids have parents who either grow or just sell or are in touch with all that stuff. Even if their family doesn't do it, they could still go to friends that their parents are also growing or selling or all that.
One of the hallmarks of civilization is that the older members of the community pass on their experience and knowledge to the younger members, and that's a valuable that's how you learn, so you're not always reinventing the wheel. And as I mentioned, my kids are old enough to be your parents right now, so it's been a while since they were teenagers, but I remember that it's a very true statement that between their ages of about 13 and 21, we as parents became stupid. And once our kids hit 21, we suddenly got smart again. So I wonder, when we're talking about how we pass on this information to you, what has to happen for you to, actually listen and understand and get the message? You talked about respect, and that was a very, very strong statement, and I like that. And there is the respect, but I know that, at certain times, kids, they don't want to hear what the adults, it's like the old Charlie Brown thing, blah, 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 with the adult speaks. And I wonder, when do we start connecting it, or how do we make that connection?
In my opinion, I feel like it needs to start happening since they're born. You need to be able to create a space where they feel like they're safe and they can talk to you. And that doesn't just immediately happen when they turn into a teenager. They need to feel like they can talk to you and be heard. And then you'll probably get the same, hopefully.
Chris, the other thing is that we're strangers, we're not your parents. And you need to learn at an early age not to listen to everything that somebody else says. So you have to start filtering at an early age what's coming at you and what's right and what's wrong, which makes it a little more complicated for you. Do you have any ideas how you deal with that? Or how we help you to deal with that?
A lot of it has to do with what Roxy was saying before. You just need to be able to make them have the ability to make the right choices of responsibility of it, that it's their choice, it's not their friend's choice, peer pressuring them. They need to respect your opinion of what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and it just needs to be taught the responsibility of it.
Instead of absent.
I just wanted to bring up about how parents allow kids to skip school also to let them use drugs and drink alcohol, which, in my opinion, they shouldn't allow them. Or they also, the kids like fake being sick, and then maybe the parents have to go to work, and then they use it while their parents are gone, and they're just misusing it, and it's not good for them.
So I'm curious about how much education and thought goes into what's underlying the use. I mean, there's substances, there's all sorts of things that are unhealthy in the world. There's usually a reason why people self-medicate. There's a reason why either socioeconomic, they're miserable, they feel helpless. So I think there's underlying things behind drug and alcohol abuse because it's filling a gap that they feel helpless about being empowered. Like you said, self-respect. And it can be that self-disrespect can be passed on and on and on through generations. And so how much education is learning how to break that chain of self-disrespect when it's in the community, when it's in families? How do you really learn? Because I think it's an issue way beyond drug and alcohol. I think there's a much deeper root that has to be addressed.
And that's what's really difficult about trying to teach kids, like trying to teach, well, anybody in general not to do something, is because generally you don't have any idea why they're doing it. And so you can't tell them that they don't need it, because to them, they sincerely do need it, because, well, in their heads at least, they do need it to get through the day, some people. And that's what's so difficult about these type of discussions, is because we can't tell them that they don't need it, that we can't tell them that they can do without it, that they can survive this world without it, because we have no idea why or how they're feeling without it.
And a lot of times they don't know why. A lot of times you'll be doing something negative, and you really don't know why you're doing it. And that's where stuff like really it's hard to figure it out for yourself. And you screw up, it becomes a bad thing, something bad happens because of your decisions you're making. Or B, you go to counseling, and you learn why you're doing the things that you're doing to break patterns and to help yourself and to ultimately live a more healthy life. So and then, there's our parents there who are sort of guiding us, and it gets to be a point where we feel like we're older and that we're entitled to make our own decisions. And that's why we come back around, I think, when we're older, because we went through some stuff and we realized, wow, that was really hard to deal with, and I probably should have listened, and, you come back around.
I think a lot of the self-medicating has to do with depression, which a lot of teenagers suffer from. But even if you go out and reach for help and go to counseling, sometimes it doesn't always work. Like Robin Williams, for example, he hung himself at age 53, and he always seemed like such a happy person on screen. He went to counseling, he had a lot of family members next to him, but he just wasn't happy. A lot of times it's psychological, not just having what's in front of you.
Yeah. I think people, especially if they're in school, they use drugs and alcohol, especially to think that they're fitting in, but it doesn't really help. They think it'll make them feel better, and just, even though it's really not, I think it's doing the opposite, because it's really just making them stand out.
I agree with a lot of what's been said, and I think that it's part of a larger conversation that we have to have as a culture, not just as young people, because the young people are a reflection of us, and a lot of us are self-medicating. So, what's going on there? And we're passing that message along silently because they watch us and how we behave. And I'm 58. But we're always learning things. So there's a lot of information that needs to be disseminated to the culture in general, and I think we all need to do some soul searching and really have sincere conversations on both sides of the fence. Because I think if the young people felt like we were bringing it too, and letting our hair down and talking about what was really going on with us and what was working and what wasn't working, they might show up and be a lot more interested. If we're pretending as if everything's fine with us, you brought up Robin Williams. I mean, the entire world, I think, was shocked with that. And, how do we deal, how do we handle as a culture, not just as individuals, because we're social animals, how do we help support one another with this information and new ways of being, so we don't have to rely on substances to subterfuge emotions that we're feeling that we don't know how to handle, or circumstances that are occurring. Because culturally and as, a world, there's all these implications if you take the long view, and look at what can happen in a lifetime, whether it's health and disease, or it's, the breakup of a family because of things that you see. We all need love and belonging, and in order to do that, you have to be able to be vulnerable and let out what's really going on with you. So I think it's part of a larger conversation that has to happen on both sides of the table.
We talked a lot about your individual experiences and your opinions and how you had class content, but there was also in the very beginning of the program something called the 4 Ps, which it seems like we're not even talking about anymore. But I wanted to know, threw that one out, but I wanted to know, it seems to me, and if I'm wrong, maybe you'll correct me, but it seems to me that the products and how those have been manipulated, the promotion and how that's happening in the community, the price, it's being cheaper than milk, and the place that these things are all available, it doesn't seem to be the most, what you all are talking about as what needs to change primarily. It may need to be changed secondarily. Am I getting that? That we need to look more at how we communicate as adults with you and you as to what's going on in the world about alcohol, but then also secondarily looking at those 4 things. Is that what I'm hearing?
I feel like when around middle school, we were hit, like at least us, because I remember, like we were hit really hard with that, with the fact that they're lying to us, everybody, all these ads and stuff.
Okay.
So I think by the time we reached high school, in our heads, like, we're not going to believe them anymore. Like, we don't believe any of the ads or anything. So it goes to more, yeah, it starts to disperse to real reasons why you do this stuff.
Yes, I had this thought in my head after a while. Like, the big question was, how can we get parents to be more involved, and then we were talking about our special culture here where there's so many parents who grown in Roma or are involved in this industry one way or the other, and that there is so much shame around. My big question is, how can we as a community talk about what's really going on without being shamed or without judgment? This is for me a big question, because I think it blocks these type of conversations and discussions that you're actually longing for. That's how I understand it. And so for me, the big question is, how can we learn to leave judgment out, and so people can really talk about what's really going on? I'm sure there's so many students that are in that country. I don't know how you handle that. If you happen to be the son or the daughter of in a family where the family lives off this industry, and we are at the same time we're living in a community where there are people who are okay with it, and there are people who are really not okay with that at all, and put a lot of judgment and shame on it. If we can figure out together maybe how we could approach that, for me this is a big question, and I've run into that problem in various ways. Nobody talks about the elephant in the room, but it's a huge elephant.
This is a good start.
Because you guys are right here, and I'm in the field, and I want to be able to utilize you guys as like a huge resource and being able to work with our young people. I have a question. You know how I was saying it there, just saying no thing doesn't work. We all know it doesn't work. So I, many years, have worked with kids your age that literally are meth addicts, some using Oxycontin, I mean, just the whole thing, addicts. And so some of them have come out and done treatment really well, very successful. Actually, I have a student I work with about 7 years ago, graduated with a master's out of UC Davis, was 13 and shooting meth and pregnant when I first started treatment with me. But here's my thing. Giving you guys information, you can't tell you stuff over your head. Like when this lady was giving like the really important information she had, you guys look like deers in headlights. I'm just saying, because I work with teenagers for a long time. Like some of you guys, older ones may have understood, the younger ones are like, we don't know where this is going. What do you feel it would be useful to have like young people from this community that have been through addiction issues, that have come out positive, have graduated from college, or they're just positive, functioning in the community, and have them talk with you, and also young people talk to you guys that their outcome wasn't so positive. Do you feel like that would be a resource to young people you guys' age, young people like speaking to you, interacting with you on the positive things on their lives and substance use and the negative things? Do you think that would be helpful?
I think it's definitely really important because it's not just something being presented to you like a board, you know, and having someone talk to you, but it's an actual person that has gone through it. And many people that may be suffering from addiction, it might help them have a positive outlook on it instead of it's too late, and keep going in and digging their grave.
I had something to say about her comments on the culture we have up here, the cannabis culture. I think the only way that we can effectively implement any sort of drug education and even get all the kids whose parents are in this cannabis culture is to reach a happy medium and treat cannabis as the medicine it is, right up there with all these other things you need an actual prescription for, and treat it what it actually is. And through that healthy compromise, sort of middle of the road action, we can bring together the non-cannabis and the cannabis cultures to where these cannabis cultivating parents would be more open. Sort of lost my train of thought.
Well, I think the inevitable legalization that's going to happen in a couple of years is going to really make a difference, and it's going to get rid of the secrecy and shame.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot more open, and we'll be putting their children in schools. And
besides medicinal, there is recreational, and responsible people can use it recreationally. It's not good for people under 21.
I feel like we need to have discussions like you're longing for, and I'm sure there's a lot of grown-ups who are longing for these type of discussions too. I think as soon as you have a problem having to go into hiding, it's going to get worse. And I think as long as we can openly talk about things and the pros and cons and the danger and the benefits, when there's a light on it, it's easier to get someplace with each other as a community. And again, I really don't know how to solve that. I've been thinking about it since I came to this country and since I came to this place.
I think that's where programs like the Just Say No was actually had a more negative effect rather than a positive, because it taught these kids that what they're doing is wrong and what their parents are doing is wrong, and so they immediately are gonna push away from what the school's saying, because they're telling them what they're doing is wrong. And in their eyes and their true beliefs, it's all positive, because that's what's helping them live. That's what's pushing their life forward, because they have the money from that. And I think, yeah, it's a real challenge to be able to have a medium, because there's always going to be people who hate it, and there's always going to be people who really love it and hate the people who hate it. And so it's a difficult task.
But you think that if people were just more real about it, that kids would care more?
Yeah.
If people got down on your level and just talked to you like a normal human being, like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to pretend like I never smoked pot or I never drank, you know, like, 'cause we all did, and just be real about it and show all sides. You're right, it's difficult. It's hard to find the perfect person for that job, you know, because like maybe in Laytonville we got some pretty good people, I think, to communicate with the kids and have these types of discussions. But then, you know, like in the next town over or in whatever other county, you know, they've got somebody who's just needs a job and they're reading out of a book and like, yeah, you shouldn't do this because it's bad.
Or even
and they're not being real, you know, they need to start finding the right people for the job.
But even if you do have that perfect speaker, it's so hard because the kids, there's always going to be kids who don't care whatsoever, who are going to go out of their way to interrupt you, or going to go out of their way to make it like be a class clown or something.
Or not show up.
Yeah, simply just because they can, because there's always going to be those type of kids, and so that's why it's
there
so
will
hard.
always be that percentage. If the people who are presenting the information or having discussions with the kids are more or are just being real with you guys.
Yeah, I think the best
and not
way.
sugarcoating it and not you know, just being broad general like this is all bad.
Because that's respect.
Exactly. Yeah, you be respectful and.
And I just wanted to say that's a nice segue. There are those people that aren't going to take the message, but here you are, right here, 8 young people from 2 different communities in our county that spent their evening with us sharing what they have to say, and that's powerful. I have some contact information up here. Willits Youth Advocates is on Facebook. You can find Laytonville Healthy Start and their crew on Facebook. I have Jamie's information up here. You can get in contact with him too. He's AmeriCorps, as he mentioned in his introduction. We are doing good things. You are doing good things. So, you know, you all can help support that.
I was just going to say that next month in Laytonville, we will be hosting Ralph Cantor back into the county. He actually appeared at Willits High School last month and spoke to the students about marijuana and the effects on the adolescent brain.
This guy's real.
He's real good. But what I appreciate about Ralph is he's going to speak to the students, and he's also going to come and do a community forum at Harwood Hall in Laytonville. We're going to audio tape it thanks to Dan, and we're also going to videotape it, hopefully to put up some videos on YouTube as a project. But what I really appreciate about Ralph is he brings a message to the parents, and that is he's having discussions with the parents who grow wine in Napa, who grow the grapes to make wine in Napa. And he's saying, as a wine grower, it is okay for you to talk to your kids about not using alcohol. So what he's telling our parents in Mendocino County is, you may grow marijuana for whatever reason, it is still okay to talk to your kids about not using marijuana. He's exactly the kind of guy we need in our community to be having these discussions. So look for it on our website, and our Facebook page will be advertising it.
Doreen? I just wanted to mention that in my experience in working with parents and with kids in this community is most parents, almost all parents, want their kids to be healthier than they are. They want the very best for their kids. So even though they may notice their own limitations and acknowledge it, they want the best for their kids. So I think the more support we can do to make that happen with both the parents and the youth is really, really important. And I'm so happy that we were able to do this tonight, and I'd like to see it continue.
And Kyrie has something to say, and we'll close with that, I think.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to share, honestly, a problem that I've noticed at a lot of these meetings is there seems to be a lot of focus on completely stamping out the problem, and that limits a lot of the ideas don't get said because they won't completely fix the problem. And I really think that that's not really the point of a social issue like drugs. You're never going to completely stamp it out the best you can do is basically just have all pistons firing and just give it your all. And I honestly think that's philosophy that needs to be brought to these meetings instead of trying to fix the entire problem, because that puts a bit more of a restrictive environment on discussions like this, and a lot of ideas don't get thrown out there because the person who has them just doesn't see them as effective enough to completely solve the problem. In so many words, I hope I didn't get jumbled up there.
We do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah, and that's more of the philosophy that needs to be brought, so people will be a little more open about the ideas that they have.
So let's move forward with all pistons firing, huh?